Okay, this is video 2, unit 7, lesson 2. We're going to finish up our multiplying today. We're going to look at some special products and then multiplying binomials times trinomials. Okay, so squaring a binomial. Remember, when you square something, you multiply it by itself. So what I'm doing is z plus 3 times z plus 3. Once I have this, then I can just use FOIL. So z times z is z squared. Z times 3 is 3z. 3 times z is also 3z. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Combine your like terms, so you get z squared plus 6z plus 9. Notice that that is not the same thing. That does not equal z squared plus 9. You would forget the middle term. You cannot distribute an exponent if you're adding inside. You can distribute an exponent if you're multiplying or dividing inside, but not adding. So that does not work. Okay, why don't you pause it, work this next example out, and then check your work. Write it twice, and then use FOIL. That would be 25y squared. 5y times 1 would be 5y. 1 times 5y would be 5y. And then 1 times 1 would be 1. Combine your like terms. And then we're done. Okay, so that's squaring a binomial. We also have something called difference of squares. And so difference of squares we'll do a lot more when we're factoring. But we need to kind of see where it comes from. So notice that these two polynomials, these two binomials, are almost the same, except one has a minus and one has a plus. So let's see what happens. Let's use FOIL and see what happens. So t times t is t squared. T times positive 5 is plus 5t. Negative 5 times t is negative 5t. And then negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. So you get t squared 5t minus 5t. So what happens there is those cancel, and you don't get a middle term. You're just going to get t squared minus 25. So your outer and inner will cancel out if you have difference of squares. Let's look at the next one. So it seems a little weird because you have t cubed, but we're going to still solve it the same way. So t cubed times t cubed. Well, add 3 plus 3, so you get t to the 6th. Then your outer would be plus 6t cubed. The inner would be negative 6t cubed. And then the last number would be negative 6 times 6, which is negative 36. Again, if you look at your outer and inner, one's positive, one's negative, those are going to cancel each other out. And you're going to get t to the 6th minus 36. Okay, so what we can say, so in general, if you have a plus b times a minus b, then your first number will be a squared. The second number will be negative b squared. So if I called t my a and 5 my b, my first one was t squared, and then negative b squared, negative 25. Again, there's not really a lot you have to know when you're multiplying these. Just note that your outer and inner will end up canceling. Okay. Now let's multiply a binomial times a trinomial. All right, I'm going to do this in a vertical method. You might have learned just to distribute both terms from the binomial, and that's fine, but the vertical method, I think, keeps things a little bit more organized. So I'm going to write this out. I'm going to put the trinomial on top, and it's going to look like just a big multiplication problem. Okay. So I'm going to start with this negative 8 here, and I'm going to multiply it by each term in the 2n squared plus n plus 7. So I'm going to do negative 8 times 7 is negative 56. Negative 8 times n is negative 8n. And negative 8 times 2n squared is negative 16n squared. Okay? So this is kind of like just regular multiplying. All right, now I'm going to do the 6n. So I'm going to do 6n times 7. And remember, you start one place over. So I'm going to put that right here. So that's plus 42n. That will help me keep my like terms together as well. 6n times n would be 6n squared. And then 6n times 2n cubed, or 2n squared, would be 12n cubed. And remember, when you're multiplying numbers like this, you add down. So, plus. So I get negative 56, negative 8n plus 42n would be 34n, negative 16n plus 6n squared would be negative 10n squared. So I need to put a plus sign in between those. And then 12n cubed. And this is my answer. Okay, pause, do the second one on your own. So then I'm going to do negative 3 times negative 6 is 18. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 4x squared would be negative 12x squared. Then I move on to the 2x. So 2x times negative 6, negative 12x. Remember to start a place over to the left. 2x times x is 2x squared. And 2x times 4x squared would be 6x cubed. So in between terms, if there's a minus sign, you can leave it, but if there's not, you need to put a plus sign. Okay, then add down 18. Negative 3x minus 12x, negative 3x plus negative 12x would be negative 15x. So I have to put a plus sign in between. Negative 12x squared plus 2x is negative 10x squared, and then 6x cubed. That finishes up multiplying. You can now do Unit 7, Assignment 3.